Saints, we have now begun the Lenten season. In Deuteronomy 26, 5 to 10, the people are told by Moses to bring their first fruits to God, but they aren't just handing over crops. They come with a confession, and the confession is, "A wandering Aramaean was my father." That's not filler language. It's a way of saying, this is who we are. We didn't get here on our own. We come from Abraham, a man who left everything familiar because God spoke. And here's where Stephen helps us to see what Deuteronomy leaves unsaid. In his defense in Acts 7, before he's martyred, Stephen declares that the God of glory appeared to our father Abraham while he was still in Mesopotamia before he lived in Haran. That's a monumental statement. In a culture where ancient Babylon worshipped thousands of deities, Stephen tells us that the God of glory, the one true God, appeared. This was no distant voice. This was the pre-existent Christ, revealing himself in glory to a man surrounded by idols. How else would Abraham have possibly walked away from everything he knew into a future with no guarantees and only a promise? Well, it depends on who gave the promise. That's the story they were commanded to rehearse every time they brought their first fruits, because the land itself was a gift. Christ has now become our land. They hadn't earned it, and neither have we. They were living inside a story God started, as we are, long before they and we were born. And that story, when they spoke it aloud, and when we speak it aloud, is worship. Telling the story isn't just a history lesson, it's doxology, a way of declaring God's goodness right in the middle of our ordinary, everyday lives. And here's the truth we need to grasp. The telling changes the teller. Every time we rehearse the story, as Israel did, they and we are reminded who we are, where we came from, and whose hands are holding our future. The story isn't just about the past. It shapes the present and opens us to the hope of what God does next. Walter Brueggemann calls this an energizing memory, a memory that doesn't leave us stuck in nostalgia, but it awakens us to radical hope. When we remember rightly, it fuels courage to trust God for the road ahead. That's why remembering in the scriptural sense is always transformative. It doesn't just inform, it forms. It reshapes how we see our life, our struggles, our blessing, our purpose. And all of this, Abraham's call, the Exodus rescue, the first fruits offering, all of it was pointing ahead to the Christ, the one who Paul calls the first fruits from the dead, whose great exodus at Calvary from death, hell, and the grave becomes our bedrock story. The whole story, the wandering, the rescue, the bounty, all leads to Jesus. Christ, risen from the dead, the guarantee that the harvest has already begun and that God's faithfulness will see the story through in all of our lives, all the way home. So when we tell the story, Abraham's story, Israel's story, our story, we're stepping into worship. The telling becomes doxology, the remembering becomes transformation, and the whole act becomes an offering of trust in the God who brought us this far and isn't done yet. He's been faithful in the past. He'll be faithful again. We aren't just people who believe something. We're people who remember, and in remembering, we're reshaped. We tell the story not to rehearse facts, but to declare that this is who we are. A people called by the God of glory, rescued by the God of Exodus, and held by the first fruits of resurrection life. And that story, beloved, in you, in me, in all of us, is still unfolding.